From New York, welcome to Larry King Live. Tonight, a survivor of man's inhumanity to man, meet Nobel laureate Elie Wiesel, and an evangelist of a different persuasion, Jan Bresky. Now, here's Larry King.
Good evening. Our wind-up night in New York. We'll be back in Washington tomorrow, the regular home of Larry King Live. Later, Rabbi Jan Bresky. Our first guest tonight is Elie Wiesel, the famed Nobel Prize winner. He won it in 1986. He also won the Congressional Gold Medal in 1985. He has authored more than 30 books. There have been 15 books written about him. His newest is Twilight. It is a novel. It is published by Summit. It is his first book since winning the Nobel Prize. Usually you write more often than this, right? What took so long?
The translation.
Oh, this was originally written in...
I wrote all of my books in French. And my wife translates my work, and she was busy. And otherwise, it would take usually a year. This time it took 2 years.
French is your most comfortable language?
I grew up in Yiddish, but I came to France in 1945. I became a student. And my first novels that I read, really, were in French. I grew up, I educated myself in French, so I write in French.
Is it also, to you, the best language? I mean, are you...
It is the best language.
Sound the best to you?
There are certain things I couldn't say, except in French. Although I teach in English, I live in the United States. I've been living here for 30 years or so.
You live in New York, you teach at Boston, too?
Boston University, yes.
But French is your favorite?
It is still my vehicle, yes.
Is Yiddish a language?
Oh, it's more than that.
I thought it's a cultural slang.
Not at all. It's a culture, first of all. It's even more than that. It's a tone, it's a melody, it's a nigun, it's a story, it's a smile.
Tell me about Twilight.
Well, it's a story about madness. I've always been fascinated by madness because I knew madmen when I was young, very young, in my hometown. Most of them were mystics, and they used to tell me stories, and I listened to their stories. Some were cruel and true. Others were beautiful, about redemption. And I became so involved with their madness that throughout my entire career as a writer, or as a teacher, or as a student, or as a person, I'm taken by madness. And the book really tells the story of my hero, who is looking for a friend. And therefore the story is also about friendship. And he goes to a mental institution somewhere, upstate New York. And that institution is very special. Every single patient believes that he or she is a biblical character. So the first one is about Adam. He meets Adam, and Adam speaks to God and says, "Stop it. Stop the whole creation. You don't need it. Believe me," he said. It won't work. And then he meets Abraham, and he meets Isaac and Jacob and Joseph. Finally, he meets the Messiah. And at the end, my hero, who is half mad already, thinks that he met someone who thinks that he is God.
Did you know where you were going when you began?
You never know. You know, you hear a certain melody, and the melody guides you. I write 3 times every book, 3 versions. So in the beginning, of course, I let myself go. It's a very long book, hundreds and hundreds of pages. Second, I cut, and the third version also is I cut, I condense.
But you knew your hero was going to go through this asylum, for want of a better term, and he was going to meet people who believed they were biblical characters. That you knew?
Not really, no. In the beginning, I thought I would send him to that institution, to that asylum. And then...
Let it go?
Let it go. And all of a sudden, it dawned upon me that actually we are all descendants of Abraham and Isaac and Jacob.
Why the title?
Twilight. It's a poetic title. It's a mystical title. In Yiddish, we call it Bein HaShmoshes, between the 2 suns.
Yeah.
And there is something about that very hour.
It's the most mystical time of the day.
Yes.
Define madness. You've seen it in all forms.
Well, I have seen, of course, cruel madness. I've seen history gone mad. It's not new. That's what frightens me even today. We have seen in history madness erupt in humanity. The Crusades were madness. The Inquisition was total madness. And therefore, I believe what happened in 1939-45, that there was madness that entered history. And an entire people was dominated by that madness.
Can a people go mad?
The whole people became mad in 39, 45. And furthermore, other people too, I think, were influenced by that madness. This is the only explanation I have, although there are no explanations for that tragedy. I think that tragedy is beyond all words or imagination.
Why does it stick? You lived through it and wrote about it.
Not much, no.
Won a Nobel Prize, but no, you don't write about it a lot, do you?
No.
Why it more than others? Why does it, in the pages of history, it is the most, jumps at you the most?
It is a unique tragedy. From all viewpoints, never before has an entire people been sentenced to death everywhere. There were children playing in my hometown, and they didn't know it. They were dead already. You were sentenced to death because you were Jewish. Never before was a person condemned to death only because of what he or she was. It was an ontological tragedy. It's not because of what we had, or what we have done, or our faith, or our message. Not at all. Being became a crime.
Have you ever understood why others stood back?
Never. I'm hurt much more by the indifference of the bystander than by the cruelty of the killer. Because what do you expect of a killer, from a killer? But then there were so many friends, allies, liberals, and they knew. Now we know how much they knew. And somehow they let it happen. We, in my little town in Hungary, that was Hungary then, now it's Romania, in 1944, April 1944, when the whole thing began, really, and we were deported in May, we didn't know what Auschwitz meant. Just imagine. Now, go back to the newspapers here, the New York Times, or Time Magazine, or Washington Post, you will see that every single reader in the United States knew the meaning of Auschwitz. We didn't, because no one cared to tell us.
Our guest is Elie Wiesel, the Nobel Prize winner, the author of Twilight. It's his newest book, published by Summit to, as you might expect, terrific reviews. We'll include your phone calls for Elie Wiesel as well, and we'll be back on Larry King Live after this.
Larry King Live is brought to you by Canon, manufacturer of advanced plain paper copiers.
Hey, isn't this Canon's new personal zoom copier?
No, it's the Queen Mary.
The zoom feature really magnifies my image.
Or cuts you down to size.
And Canon replaceable cartridges sure make it easy to maintain. Like my other PC.
Well, have you come to praise the PC-7 or to buy it?
Listen, Canon's personal zoom copier is the newest star in my family.
Guess you can't pick your relatives.
Personal copiers for every personality, only from Canon.
Buying a house is the biggest investment you'll make. That's why you need to protect it the best way possible. Cabot Stains. These days, with what it costs to buy a house, we're a drop in the bucket.
Recovery from alcoholism and drug addiction is a step-by-step process. We know what it's like to be at the bottom. Many of us at Willingway have been there. We know the power of compassion and proper treatment to help others to the top and stay there. It's all we do, and we've been doing it for over 20 years. If you care enough to take the first step, call Willingway.
The finer things, happily some are affordable, like Grey Poupon Dijon mustard. So fine, it's even made with white wine.
Pardon me, would you have any Grey Poupon?
But of course, Grey Poupon, one of life's finer pleasures.
A massive upsurge in the stock market today sent the Dow soaring near post-crash highs. Why it happened and what it means tonight on Moneyline at 11 Eastern on CNN.
Our guest is Elie Wiesel, the Nobel Prize laureate, the author of Twilight, just published a new novel from Summit Books. We'll take your phone calls. Just want to cover a couple of current things. Encouraged by the summit?
Very much.
By Gorbachev?
Very much.
You see a new breed?
He is new for the Soviet Union, and I believe that he tries to do something. Not enough, but if we give him enough time and possibilities, I think he will go farther.
The current Israeli government?
It's the same government that was there 2 years ago and 3 years ago. It's called the National Unity Government, except they changed the two top leaders.
Do you admire its stand, this leader's stand, toward the Palestinians?
Oh, you use the word admire. It's a strong word. You know, I am, as a Jew, I am totally in love with Israel. I am totally in love with Jewish history, with the Jewish people. That doesn't mean that I'm against other people. That means, as a Jew, from within my Jewishness, I try to reach out to others. And I believe that what is happening in Israel today is a tragedy for both the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Are you shocked that your own people could be so harsh?
No, I'm pained. Occasionally,
Not shocked.
I'm pained. Shocked again, it's already a judgmental word. I don't like to judge. My task is not to be a judge over my people, or over any people. My task is to bear witness as a writer, as a Jew, as someone who lives a certain life.
Have you judged Waldheim?
Oh, Waldheim is beyond judgment. I think this man really is a farce. The fact that he's still president of Austria, after all, a man who should know that to be president of Austria means to be the moral arbiter of his nation. How can he be the moral arbiter when he himself admitted that he lied, and he lied over certain very important issues?
The PBS tribunal found not enough evidence to convict the other night.
I didn't see the film, but I know the story. And so what? But again, he lied. A liar should not be the president of his people, of his country, of his nation.
Are you, with all you've been through, an optimist?
Yes, when I'm desperately pessimistic, I become an optimist.
Explain.
No, this is actually, Albert Camus used to say that our choice is between being a smiling pessimist or a weeping optimist. And occasionally, I move to despair when I see what is happening in the world. I give up.
And that gets you optimistic?
Then I say to myself, we have to do something about it.
Are we going to build a Holocaust something in Washington?
I think so. You know, I was chairman for 8 years. First was President's Commission and then on the Council, but I resigned in December, so I don't know really now what's happening. But I hope that a dignified monument and museum and teaching center will be erected in Washington.
Other countries have such monuments, do they not?
Only Israel.
Only Israel?
Israel has one, which is a national museum, the Yad Vashem, which is the most important place and should remain the most important place. France has a small museum called the Museum of Contemporary History.
Does West Germany have anything?
No, but I think they're trying to do something now in Berlin. I was in Berlin 2 years ago, and I went to see the Wannsee Villa. The Wannsee Villa was the place where, on January 20th, 1942, the hierarchy, the highest officials in the land, decided on the final solution. And I realized that they didn't even know what it was. The people whom I had met, the important personages, they didn't know what it was. I made a scandal. And now they told me that they are building a museum there.
What did you see there?
Nothing.
Nothing?
Just nothing. So I said to them, I said, you know, I would like to interview the stones, because the stones are here. Since you don't remember, maybe the clouds will remember, the stones will remember, the trees will remember.
This doesn't happen in our lifetime, but it happened to you. How did you hear that you had won the Nobel Peace Prize?
Oh, really, it was silly. It was Yom Kippur, first of all. And I went to the synagogue, naturally. I fasted that day. And I developed a terrible headache between Musaf service and Mincha service. And I came home with a friend. And in the lobby, there was a man, and he was a journalist from Norway. And he said, I want to speak to you. I said, you cannot speak to me today. It's Yom Kippur. It's a holy day. I cannot speak to journalists today. He insisted, can I come to your room, to your apartment? He came up. He said, I want you to know that in a few hours, my paper, Dagbladet, is going to publish a headline at midnight that you won the Nobel Prize. I said, are you crazy? Don't be silly. And furthermore, I said, please call up your editor for my telephone and tell him not to do it because it's silly. He said, no, that's what's going to happen. I didn't believe him. And after the fast, we went to friends again to break the fast, and nothing. We went to sleep with a few friends who came over just to chat. Next day in the morning at 5 o'clock, a telephone came from Oslo. And all of a sudden, there was an avalanche of reporters, including the CNN.
Did you know you were being considered?
Oh, yes. I knew that I was considered for both the Literary Prize and the Peace Prize. I read in the papers. People told me about it, but I knew that.
Did you fantasize that you'd win it?
Oh, no. You don't think about these things.
No? So how did that guy know?
He's a Norwegian journalist, and somehow there was a leak. Usually, there is no secret. No secret better kept than that.
I know.
And somehow, I don't know how he knew.
Our guest is Elie Wiesel. His new book is Twilight. We'll take your phone calls after this.
Hey, isn't this Canon's new personal zoom copier?
No, it's the Queen Mary.
The zoom feature really magnifies my image.
Or cuts you down to size.
And Canon replaceable cartridges sure make it easy to maintain. Like my other PC.
Well, have you come to praise the PC7 or to buy it?
Listen, Canon's personal zoom copier is the newest star in my family.
Guess you can't pick your relatives.
Personal copiers for every personality. Only from Canon.
Jay Hamilton, telephone, please.
For over 30 years, in hospitals across America, patients have been treated for pain and itching of minor burns, cuts, and skin irritations with Americaine. That's because maximum strength Americaine stops the pain fast. When you treat minor cuts, scrapes, burns, and insect bites, you'll find hospital formula Americaine stops the pain for your patients too. Americaine stops the pain.
Leroy Neiman for the Sharp Color Copier.
Vivid colors have always excited me.
Now, for bright, winning colors, Sharp's advanced technology creates a full-color business copier. It copies from slides, makes transparencies, enlarges and reduces. From crisp black and white to full-color copies, you're the winner with Sharp.
Art by Neiman, color by Sharp. How'd I ever get along without it?
For more information, call 1-800-B-SHARP.
This summer, cruise to Canada in classic style aboard SS Bermuda Star. Enjoy the elegance and service of the classic-era cruise ships, amid scenic grandeur and the charm of Europe, right here in North America. Cruise Canada St. Lawrence, visit Nova Scotia and New England, explore historic Quebec, quaint villages and harbors. For 7 glorious days, cruise from New York, Philadelphia, or Montreal aboard the Bermuda Star, Saturdays through October. See your travel agent now.
The once-threatened peregrine falcon is back in the wild in growing numbers thanks to the partnership of laboratory and nature. The falcon's bright future tomorrow morning on Daybreak at 8 Eastern on CNN.
In 1985, he won the Congressional Gold Medal. In 1986, the Nobel Peace Prize. He is Elie Wiesel, and his new book is Twilight, and it is published by Summit. And we'll start your phone calls. We begin with Toledo, Ohio. Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
I would like to ask Mr. Kazan, how would he respond to blacks who say that the real Holocaust was when 20 million blacks were lost in the Atlantic slave trade, and such books as Toni Morrison's Beloved points out the cruelty that was there.
All right, Howard, thank you. How about when others say theirs was the...
Oh, that gentleman, whose name I wouldn't like even to pronounce, belongs to a very special category of vicious, ugly anti-Semites. They maintain that the Holocaust never existed. And I would never dignify them with a debate.
Do you sorrow for all the people? I mean, because some people will say, well, the other part of her question is, when we concentrate on one, are we saying the blacks didn't suffer a Holocaust in the slave trade, or Pol Pot didn't commit, or Stalin didn't commit heinous crimes?
No, it's just the opposite. It's only when we remember what happened to our people that we remember also afterwards in a different way. But as a result of that remembrance, what was done to other people. Look, I have seen non-Jews in the camps. I've seen them, I've been with them. You mentioned Pol Pot, I went to Cambodia. I tried to be involved in every issue in every cause that dealt with human rights or with human suffering. So it is because I remember that I remember the others.
Have we ever figured out why people kill people?
The first murder was Cain killing Abel. The first death in history was a murder. Now, I always try to understand why the story in the Bible is dark, terrible story, terrifying.
Yeah. And a brother.
A brother, what does it teach us? First of all, it's possible for two brothers to become each other's assassin or victim. But second, which is much more important, we don't think about it, that whoever kills his brother.
We go to New York City for Elie Wiesel. The book is Twilight. Hello.
Yes, I was wondering if Mr. Wiesel could see any cure to the problems in Israel in the near future. What is it going to take before the problem is solved?
Yeah. Is that ever going to end? Good question.
Oh, it will. It's a very good, it's a very painful question, but a true question. I wish I had the answer. I was in Israel 10 days ago, and I did meet a Palestinian leader who was the uncle of Abu Jihad, of all people, the man who was killed by the Israeli Secret Service in Tunis, according to the newspapers. And we had a long, long talk. I also met with the soldiers in Gaza. I met with Israelis. I met both with Prime Minister Shamir, the Foreign Minister Peres, and people. I don't see a solution. I wish I had a solution. If I were Prime Minister of Israel, I don't know what I would do.
Is one of the problems the fact that maybe both sides are right?
Oh, it's not. It's probably, there's some truth in it, of course. That means I understand. I must say something. I understand the young Palestinians.
I mean, a Palestinian could sit here now and make a case with you nodding at everything he says.
And I would feel with him and for him. I understand the young Palestinians who became angry in December. Because for 40 years, they were ignored by everybody. By their own people, by their own nations, by their own brothers, and by Israel, and by the whole world. We talked about Iraq, and about Syria, and about Jordan, and about and all the other Muslim or Arab nations. And somehow, we treated the Palestinians as non-beings. And that is wrong. We had no right to do that. And therefore, of course, when they are being treated as non-persons, what is the answer? Violence.
They're the only people in the world treated that way, aren't they, technically?
Oh, I'm sure there are other people, too, probably, who live elsewhere. I don't know them, but they are surely in the forefront.
Elie Wiesel is our guest. New York City is next. Hello.
Yes, I saw a talk show, and the topic was about ethnic jokes. And one reference was made to the Holocaust. Now, quite a few people laughed, and I was quite upset about it. My question to Mr. Wiesel is, what would he say to these people for them to understand that this was something that was very, very serious?
Humor in the Holocaust.
Really, there was humor in the ghettos.
They were camp comedians.
Yes, you mentioned one.
I knew one.
Yes. There was humor, strange humor, kind of philosophical humor, almost theological humor, even in the death camps. But I cannot imagine today the Holocaust treated as humor. It doesn't go together.
No joke fits.
No joke.
Nothing's funny.
But nothing fits, and surely nothing funny. No.
Your parents were killed, right?
My parents and the little sister, and two of my sisters survived. One of them died of cancer since.
Did you know they were killed? When they were killed? I mean, you were 15?
More or less, you know, we knew that the first night we saw the flames, and we knew.
What goes through a 15-year-old?
Not from my father. My father died with me later on.
Oh, you were with him?
I was with him.
How did he die?
Of hunger.
What goes through a 15-year-old seeing that? I mean, is there... That's an awkward age.
Disbelief, first of all. It cannot happen. For days and nights, I thought I was living a nightmare. I literally was convinced that it wasn't true.
A dream?
A dream. Then, all kinds of questions, you know, what is happening? What is the meaning of all that? I remember the question of all questions was, what does it mean? When I realized that actually the death camp or Auschwitz was a universe, a society, a civilization that lived parallelly to our own. It had its own kingdom, its own prince, its own thief, its own philosopher, its own comedian, its own language, its own philosophy, its own theology. And I said, well, it works. That was the worst thing. It works. The enemy has created a universe. And it worked. The killers killed, the victims perished, the flames burned into the sky.
The system went on.
And it went on.
Were you there when it was liberated?
I was there in Buchenwald. We were liberated on April 11, 1945 by the American Army. And Patton's Army. I will never forget it.
I'll ask about that. Our guest is Elie Wiesel. The book is Twilight. It is his first book since the Nobel Peace Prize, and it is published by Summit Books to rave reviews, as you might expect. We're just going to spend some more moments with Elie Wiesel, and then we'll meet Rabbi Jan Bresky. Tomorrow night, we're going to talk about a very controversial book about Pablo Picasso. This is Larry King Live in New York, back in Washington tomorrow night, and back with Elie Wiesel after this.
Buying a house is the biggest investment you'll make. That's why you need to protect it the best way possible. Cabot Stains. These days, with what it costs to buy a house, we're a drop in the bucket.
Once you look through a Minolta Maxim, you'll never see life the same way again. Maxim, the world's first SLR with built-in autofocus. 26 autofocus lenses capture the action as only you see it. You and Minolta Maxim bring creativity to life. The Maxim system.
Only from the mind of Minolta.
You'd think anyone who'd spend £1 million on a house would pave the drive.
Quite. Not mind that boulder.
Oh, it's fine for them, of course. They have a Range Rover.
Well, do they? And they have no problem in this muck.
I say, we must be going through a foot of water.
Ah, the house at last. Range Rover, the most sensible luxury car in the world. Is my tie straight?
A massive upsurge in the stock market today sent the Dow soaring near post-crash highs. Why it happened and what it means tonight on Moneyline at 11 Eastern on CNN.
Follow the leader into the future of television. CNN, the world's most important network.
Marie Corliss, ERA Gallo and DeCroce, talks about real estate.
To see a smile on a client's face and say, thank you, this is the house, or this is the apartment, or this is a townhouse that I really love, is more gratifying to me than just being in the service-type business.
Marie Corliss, ERA Gallo and DeCroce, Morris Plains, 292-9292.
It's a good thing I found Downtown Auto Rental. A good-looking car, fun to drive, the rates are right. Thank you, Downtown Auto Rental.
Take the case of Jane Doe. She drops her GM car at McDonald Pontiac for service, rents from Downtown Auto Rentals, and she's on her way in minutes. When you need a car, stay out of the twilight zone. Come to Downtown Auto Rentals.
6.
This is CNN, a network of Turner Broadcasting System.
We'll take some more calls for Elie Wiesel, but first, the day of liberation. Did you see a flag, a tank?
No, actually, since April 5th, the camp was being evacuated, and almost 10,000 were being evacuated every day.
Because the Germans knew.
They knew, of course, that the Americans were coming closer. And I was always, almost at the gate. And by accident, really. I don't even say by miracle, by accident. I was always behind. And we were going to be evacuated on April 11, all of us, 20,000. And all of a sudden, there was a resistance in the camp. And the resistance rose with arms. And they disarmed the Germans. The Americans came in and they found a free camp. And I will never forget the first soldiers. One of them was a black sergeant, a huge, gigantic man, a giant of a man. And when he saw us, he cried. He cried like a child.
Seeing how skinny you were.
He saw us and he cried. He was angry. There was anger in that man. And I will never forget, with gratitude, the anger in that man.
And in you was what? What feeling was in you?
In the beginning, nothing. I was thinking of my father, my mother. So actually, we were together with Russian war prisoners.
No relief, no great, what a wonderful day this is?
Oh, no, not yet, no. It didn't set in yet. It didn't sink in. The Russians actually went to Weimar, and they became avengers.
Oh, they were tough.
Oh, yes, they were tough. What we did, we organized a minyan, a prayer, and we said Kaddish.
To Jacksonville, Florida, for Elie Wiesel. The book is Twilight. Hello. Are you there?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Mr. Wiesel, I'm a great admirer of your humanitarian contributions, and I would like to know whether you believe the evidence that Dr. Joseph Mengele is really dead.
My feeling is that yes, he is. I was in Brazil, I think, last year, and I spoke to the American Consul General, who actually is his field to identify, and he told me with absolute certainty that it was Mengele.
He cheated us then, didn't he?
That was really sad, because so many Nazi hunters actually were convinced that he's in Paraguay and elsewhere, and they were convinced, they even gave statements that they knew exactly where he was, and he had already been dead for so many years.
San Jose, California, for Elie Wiesel. Hello.
Yes, in light of the centuries of anti-Semitic teaching by the church, particularly in Poland and Eastern Europe, how can you not believe in collective guilt?
Even so, I don't believe in collective guilt. As a people, the Jewish people suffered so much because we were accused collectively of things that we have never done. I cannot turn the past. I cannot say that now I am judging the others.
There were the Pope's visits of all time.
Oh, I made statements against him, of course. I think it was a disgrace.
But you don't blame the Catholic people?
I don't, because first of all, there were many Catholic people who came out against the Pope. There are liberal Catholics, there are good Catholics. During the war, there were Catholics and Protestants who risked their lives to save Jews. So how can I come up, really, and pass judgment on an entire community?
What do you like better, writing or teaching?
For me, it's the same. The writer in me is a teacher, and the teacher in me is a writer. But I have a passion for both. I'm passionately involved with my students, and we never discuss my books, of course. But of course, before I come to my class, I write. And after I come back, I write again.
Is there as much pride in Book 30 as there was in Book 10?
Oh, there's no pride, really.
No?
Pride is not a word. If I meet someone who has been touched by one word or one sentence, then I feel rewarded.
I'm rewarded in meeting you. Thank you, Elie. Elie Wiesel. The book is Twilight. We'll be back with Rabbi Jan Bresky. This is Larry King Live in New York. Don't go away.
And he had a PTL club whose land and cameras were worth another $150 million a year. And now we look at Jimmy Baker, and all that is left of PTL and Jimmy Baker is dust and ashes.
Coming up, the missionary zeal of Jan Bresky.
Before you take a single picture, before you press the shutter, before you autofocus, before you operate the fully motorized extended range zoom lens, before you place it next to your eye, before you even touch it, you're going to want to own it. The incredible 35mm Infinity Super Zoom 300. New from Olympus.
With low back pain, walking can be agony, where every step shoots pain. Up here, you know what helps? New back guard.
Clinically proven back guard is a shoe insert for low back pain aggravated by foot shock. Back guard with its shock trapper module relieves this low back pain. Watch how it helps absorb shock upon impact to reduce the shock to your back.
Amazing. Something down here can help up here.
New back guard from Dr. Scholl's. Absorb shock all day to help keep back pain away.
Dodge Caravan. When you look at its versatility, its unique front-wheel drive capability, its 770 protection plan. When you consider the fact that it's the only vehicle in its class that gives you a choice of a long or short wheelbase, it's no wonder Caravan is the #1 selling passenger minivan in the world. The unequaled Dodge Caravan. It's gotta be a Dodge.
You can win a trip for two to see Frank Sinatra open at Valley's Reno Hotel in the Watch to Win Showbiz Getaway.
All this week on CNN Showbiz Today, 6 Eastern, 3 Pacific.
Our next guest is Rabbi Jan Bresky, called by some, as the book says, the Jewish Billy Graham, founder of the Jewish Media Relations Council, author of the book published in trade paperback, Common Sense Religion for America. Do you like or dislike that term?
I don't like the word evangelist. I'm a teacher, I am a rabbi, and I like to think of myself as a servant of God.
But you're involved in
I'm reaching
spreading
out.
Judaism,
Yes.
and
No. I am not out to convert a single person. My goals are to bring each person close to God, and if so, in their own faith. They don't have to become Jewish. As you and I know, there's some people we wouldn't even want in the Jewish religion. No.
So you don't want to be
I
Jimmy
don't.
Swagger?
No. Exactly the wrong image. I want to be the opposite. I want to bring people back to God in their own faith. I want people to learn how to pray and have a relationship with God. Not just to believe or not believe in God, but to pray 5 or 10 minutes every day. Have a relationship with God.
For what purpose?
For the purpose of becoming a better person. For the purpose of gaining strength and power and wisdom and insight.
You have to believe in order to do it, right? I mean,
no.
It's not hip.
I've sent people out, I say, look, there are thousands of proofs for the existence of God and thousands of proofs against the existence of God. And they are all inconclusive. The only way
Nobody knows.
Nobody knows. But I know, and you can know, Bresky's no big deal, you can know too, by prayer. Prayer is the way we have a relationship with God. And when we have that relationship, we know that God exists, and we can make God part of our lives. And then the other 23 hours and 55 minutes of the day, I teach the Torah-itic or biblical principles of love. We should love everyone we meet, but I also have a mother-in-law, so I teach toleration. You have to tolerate people who are different than you. And non-harm. Try not to hurt people. Try not to hurt anything in your life.
Have as many Jews, percentage-wise, left the followings of going every Saturday as Christians?
Worse. There's been a 60% decline in Judaism, according to the Gallup poll, since World War II.
That would have to mean, I don't want to assume things, so I'll ask, does that mean that the message is failing?
No, it means that we're not presenting the message in modern terms. The message is great, Larry. The message is a fantastic message. The message is that God is real, that we can know God, that God loves us, that God cares for us. The message is not failing, but we need to bring it into 21st century terms. That little box that people are watching, that's what the 21st century
And you
promises.
use that?
Yes, that's all just a tool.
This is not asked to be sarcastic.
Go ahead.
How can you believe after you hear Elie Wiesel?
He believes.
How can he believe?
I have a rare blood disease, bone marrow disease. It's not leukemia, it's not AIDS, it's myelodysplasia Q5 negative syndrome. And I was up at National Institute for Health with very, very sick people. And they believed. Because...
foxhole belief.
No, I believed before I was sick, way before I was sick. I think every person is capable of knowing God and having that relationship and gaining from it, gaining strength and wisdom and power and insight.
But how could you see Hitler and say there's a God?
How can you see Hitler and say, we are not responsible for our actions? God has given us free will. Each one of us has the free will to choose between good and evil. And what Mr. Wiesel so beautifully presents is that sometimes people choose madness. Don't blame it on God. People actually choose to be evil, to be mad.
If God does nothing about it, then I'm not a math expert, but doesn't that algebraically mean he equates himself out? He made the rules and left the field.
It doesn't mean that the people who were in the concentration camp, like Mr. Wiesel, and people who are in terrible situations now, people may be listening right now in a terrible situation. It doesn't mean that God has abandoned them personally. God can be with them even at their toughest time. And that's what I've learned in my life through my own sickness.
Your sickness is a terminal sickness?
Well, unless they find a cure.
Terminal when? Terminal?
1 to 10 years, unless they come up with a cure.
And do you believe you're going to go somewhere? There's a spirit waiting for you?
I don't worry about it. I have so much work to do here and now that I don't worry about the afterlife.
Well, then what does the belief mean? If you're not sure of an afterlife...
I'll tell you what it means. I was getting a blood transfusion, and they were literally putting blood in one hand and taking it out the other to do testing. And I had reached the end of my line, the end of my rope, Larry. And I was sitting there with my Bible, and I opened, and I found a passage in Ezekiel, and it was a passage where the prophet is taken to a valley, and there's nothing there but dry bones, and that's my disease. I have dry bones. And God says to the prophet, can these bones live? And the prophet says, God, only you know. And God says, those bones can live. To me, that was a personal message. Have hope, your bones can live.
Our guest is Rabbi Jan Bresky. This is Larry King Live in New York. Back after this.
Introducing the all-new Oldsmobile Cutlass Supreme. Four-wheel disc brakes, a multi-port fuel-injected V6 engine, four-wheel independent suspension, an aerodynamic styling even the wind can't resist. In short, the new Cutlass Supreme is not your father's Oldsmobile.
When a code 1 fire breaks, there's no time for a communication flare-up. One call alerts police and medical units. Tel Plus sure takes the heat off us.
We lost hundreds of calls a day. Now with Tel Plus, calls instantly switch to the next open agent. And our call center is a profit center.
People trust us with their finances, so we need a phone system we can bank on. Tel Plus is our best money line.
Call 1-800-TEL-PLUS for business telephone systems and equipment. Tel Plus, a Siemens company.
Cash or charge?
We interrupt this purchase for a reminder. The Discover card actually pays you cash back for every charge.
It's perfect. I've got to have it.
It pays to Discover.
Daddy, I want my teddy bear.
I want my Serta.
Get comfortable. Get a Serta Perfect Sleeper. It'll spoil you for sleeping any other way.
I want my Serta.
A massive upsurge in the stock market today sent the Dow soaring near post-crash highs. Why it happened and what it means tonight on Moneyline at 11 Eastern on CNN.
Our guest, by the way, Rabbi Bresky, hosts his own weekly talk show called Dimensions. Produced, directed, and hosted a documentary on the Holocaust called Never Again. By the way, are you also, you say you're not promoting, are you also saying to Christians that if you're doubtful, come to Judaism?
No.
No?
No, what I do is I simply present the Jewish message. And if people are interested, they can come. I have not made a single convert this year. I've not performed a single conversion this whole year that I've been doing broadcasting.
We'll take some calls for Rabbi Jan Bresky, called the Jewish Billy Graham. We go to Edison. He doesn't like it, but that's not a bad guy to be compared to.
No, he's honest.
Edison, New Jersey. Hello.
Hello. Rabbi, your ideas you speak of are great, but I'd just like to ask you, why do you feel that what you are speaking of is Judaism and not just monotheistic universalism?
That's a good question. I was brought up a Jew. I observed the rituals of Judaism, and we have to understand that Christianity and Islam have their roots in Judaism. And many of the things we hear on Christian fundamentalist TV, they have taken to their own, but their roots are basically in Judaism. We shouldn't be ashamed to get on the TV or the radio and tell the world these things have their roots in our religion.
The late Reverend James Pike, Bishop Pike, said to me that all Christians are Jews. Most of them forget it. We go to Hyattsville, Maryland. Hello.
Hello there.
Hi.
Brief question, brief statement. What is your stand on the Messianic Jewish movement? Psalm 22, Isaiah 35.
All right. Before we do any Bible thumping, if you show me the name Jesus in the Bible right now, in the Jewish Bible, I'll convert on the Larry King show. It's not there, okay?
All right, wait a minute,
so
hold it.
basically,
you say it's there, sir?
Pardon me, sir?
You say the name Jesus is in the Old Testament?
Well, no, but I became a Christian about 2 years ago, and I feel my God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob.
Well, what is the question?
Well, my question is what is your feeling about the Messianic?
What do you feel about Christ?
I feel that any way someone finds their way to God is fine with me. I personally, as an authentic Jew, do not believe in Jesus as the Son of God. I believe he was born, lived, and died a Jew, and most of what he taught was Judaism, and we as Jews should respect who he was, but in my view, he certainly was not the Son of God. And if other people find him the Son of God and find God that way, that's fine with me.
Was he a rabbi?
Yes, he was.
Right. Are you disappointed that the Messiah has not come?
I am disappointed you and I, and Elie Wiesel, and all of us together have not built a Messianic age in partnership with God.
You mean the Messiah doesn't come until...
I don't believe in a personal Messiah. I don't believe someone's going to pop down from heaven and make everything all right. I believe you and I have to do the work.
When you say a prayer, most people say, pray, dear God, please give me a
bicycle or a Mercedes, right.
What do you mean?
I mean that you should sit down somewhere quiet. New York, that's going to be impossible, but sit down somewhere quiet 5 to 10 minutes every day and pour out your soul and your heart to God. To God. And then, here's the important thing. Listen. Listen for a response. Listen for direction. See, I don't believe that God has stopped communicating with us. I don't think he's going to say, hey, Larry, have Bresky on the show. I don't think that's the kind of communication. But I do believe, like finding that passage in Ezekiel, God is communicating with us all the time. We are not listening. The main prayer in Judaism says, hear, O Israel, probably because Jews don't listen.
Rabbis have unusual problems these days, and you talk about dealing with it in the modern world. How do you deal with drugs in the Jewish community?
Increasing problem. As people become separated and more separated from God, which I believe is the fundamental human problem, not sin, we're not in rebellion with God, we don't even know God. As people become more separate from God, as people become more separate from values, they get more and more lonely, more and more empty. The answer for them is drugs. Larry, we could line the shores with boats, with planes, trying to stop the drug trade. That's not the answer. The answer is a spiritual answer. The answer is to create people, raise children that don't need drugs, whose loneliness is filled with love of family, compassion for others, and a relationship with God.
But the need is created often by peers, right? They don't necessarily have a need. The guy says, try this.
I grew up in the 60s. There were plenty of drugs around in the 60s, although I think this is worse than the 60s. And yet, I did not try drugs because I had those things. I had wonderful parents. I had a strong relationship with my synagogue. And I felt included. I felt part of something. And I thought I knew God. And I felt close to God. And so I didn't go that way.
Most Jewish Americans are political liberals. And I guess if they put up if Jesse Jackson didn't say who he was and just listed the planks of his platform, he would get the Jewish vote, as opposed to the Dukakis planks or the Richard Gebhardt planks. Most Jews would be inclined to agree with most of Jesse Jackson's political philosophy. Why didn't they vote for him?
Because he's anti-Semitic.
You believe he's anti-Semitic?
Yes.
Because he said the word
He has a long history of anti-Semitism. Maybe he has changed. And if he has changed, he should be forgiven and we should listen. But
you're not saying it then just based on
the ADL has a list of all the different things he has said about Jews and all the different actions he has taken. And I think Jews perceive him as anti-Semitic. He may or may not be at this time, but as you know, Larry, perception is reality.
To Washington, D.C., hello.
Yes, I would like to know what percentage of the contributions are sent to Israel.
Of my contributions, I went from...
Your program.
Sure, I went from a pulpit job where I made about $60,000 a year, and last year I made $20,000 a year, and all of our finances are published. Nothing that we raise goes to Israel. Everything we raise tries to pay for the expensive costs of broadcasting.
Ma'am, are you still there? Yeah. Why would she assume that?
Jewish conspiracy, worldwide Jewish conspiracy. See, one of the goals of our organization is to dispel anti-Semitic myths. Jews have horns,
But
Jews
you
are
can
rich,
be
etc.
opposed to an action by the state of Israel, can't you?
I am.
So is Elie Wiesel.
Sure. We're independent. And so can you.
But sometimes don't you put Christians in a tough spot here? That a Christian comes forward and says, I think Israel's wrong, and immediately we get that label. If Jesse Jackson says Israel's wrong, he's dead in the woods.
What I'm saying is this woman automatically assumed I'm sending money to Israel just because I'm teaching the Jewish religion on television. I really never delve in politics. We do strictly religion,
And
God, prayer, and ethics.
You would not then assume that if someone made an anti-Israel statement,
that they're
he or she was anti-Semitic.
Absolutely not.
Okay. Next caller is Cherry Hill, New Jersey, for Rabbi Jan Bresky on Larry King Live. Tomorrow night we look at the life of Picasso. Hello.
Hi, I would like to know, I've been trying to study Judaism and would like to convert, but in a lot of things I have read, are converted Jews treated as like second-hand Jews, or are you Jewish once you convert?
About 25 years ago, they may have been treated more as second-class citizens, but we have more and more people converting to Judaism every year, and I think that you ought to seek out a local rabbi and synagogue and pursue your desire to convert.
We'll be back with a few remaining moments with Rabbi Jan Bresky on Larry King Live. Don't go away.
Good evening. I'm Patrick Emery.
And I'm Donna Kelly. Coming up at the top of the hour, there's good and bad news for the nation's elderly.
The Reagan administration wants to get personal in its war on drug abuse.
And it's dry and getting drier in much of the country.
We'll have these stories and more on the CNN Evening News right after Larry King Live.
It hurt. It hurt. It was very painful. Everybody seems to have different pains. For me, it really hurt. It hurt for about 3 straight hours then. It really hurt. I couldn't move my arms. My chest was really incredible. I was having a hard time breathing, although they never gave me oxygen, so I must not have been laboring that badly. You're scared to death up to then, and then at some point you realize, because it's just what's going to happen, that either these 8 people are going to save you, or they're not. And there's nothing you can do.
If you've already had a heart attack, ask your doctor how a healthy diet, not smoking, controlling your blood pressure, and an aspirin a day can help reduce the risk of a second heart attack. This message has been brought to you by the makers of Bufferin.
Our guest is Rabbi Jan Bresky. If you want more information about him and his... What are you?
I call it a rabbin intermission.
Just write to us at Larry King Live in Washington, D.C., and we'll tell you how to get in touch with him. What do you think of Jews for Jesus?
I think they're deceptive. I think they give the Christians the wrong understanding what we as authentic Jews believe. Anyone who believes in Jesus as the Messiah is a Christian. Anyone who does not accept that and accepts the Old Testament and the normative things of Judaism is a Jew. And I think you cannot make milk meat or meat milk, as we say in Judaism. So I think one is one, and they should be proud of being Christians.
Are you disturbed, as some rabbis are, by Jewish assimilation into America, the breakdown of Jewish life into marriage, etc.?
I am disturbed that the center of Jewish life is not God. I am disturbed that more and more Jews don't, less and less Jews are praying every year. I am disturbed that we need a Jewish renewal, and it has to be based on something spiritual. Those are the things that disturb me.
No pun. Do you have faith that's going to happen?
Do I have faith it's going to happen? Yes. I have complete faith it's going to happen. Otherwise, I wouldn't be doing this. I mean, it'd be much more comfortable for me to be in a pulpit and be secure. I really believe in this.
And you do better. Financially, you do better.
I don't want to comment on that.
Thanks, Rabbi.
Thank you very much.
Rabbi Jan Bresky has been with us. His book is Common Sense Religion for America. Earlier, Elie Wiesel. Tomorrow night, we'll meet the author of a very controversial new book on Pablo Picasso. It has been widely discussed and written about, and indeed does a lot to tear down a lot of myths about Pablo Picasso. That is tomorrow night on Larry King Live. Also tomorrow night, Orson Bean, who's going to be with us 1 hour from now on the Larry King Show on radio. We'll also meet Ira Burko, the terrific sports writer of the New York Times. And we'll be back in Washington tomorrow night, which is home. Thanks for joining us. 143 and arrivederci.
In tonight's Newsnight 900 poll question, we ask, should Dukakis first offer the vice presidential nomination to Jesse Jackson? Call in your votes at midnight Eastern, 9 Pacific.
Follow the leader into the future of television. CNN, the world's most important network.
Boris, wake up. We have bugs.
No, KGB says no bugs.
No, you idiot. I mean bugs.
Bugs. Better call Abel.
Right. That's 1-800-541-BUGS.
Wipe out termites with Able Pest Control's Termite Special. Mention this TV ad and get full treatment of any house, including a 5-year guarantee for just $399 plus tax. Call 1-800-541-BUGS anytime.
Well, boys, I got all your bugs, except for these.
After studying the administration's views on world affairs, I began living by the concept of strength through superior military power. That's why I bought my new GMC Jimmy. It's got a very peppy engine and lots of room at the top, which makes it a wonderful mobile unit for transporting my little old intercontinental ballistic missile. After all, you never know when the neighbors are going to act up.
For the moments of triumph, the moments of partnership, the moments of togetherness. For all your significant moments, Omega Seamaster, the new standard in sport. Constellation, crisp, classic elegance, and simple, an arresting new look in luxury watches.